Huzzah, Rangers. This is Phil Harris again here at the Jacks Rangers Show. Got a very special guest here joining us all the way from Scotland, Sam Mathews in the Over in 80 Minutes podcast. Sam, how the hell are you?
Mate, that's great. That intro is better than mine. Thank you for having me on. Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Perfect. Yeah. So how's everything going in Scotland today? What's the weather like?
Mate, it's good for one of the rare occasions, especially now that we've hit October. It's not raining. The drive back, I was up in Edinburgh today, so the drive back was actually pleasant. Instead of gripping the wheel really tightly and trying to make sure I didn't die flying off the road, so it was a nice change.
Very nice. I'm actually wearing a Dougie Fife appreciation shirt that the 1st Regiment does. It's a supporters group of the Free Jacks that we just started up. It says Champagne Rugby, and it's got Fife, and it's got like a bottle on it. Let's see if I can stand up. There we go. Check that out.
Oh, you have to get me one sent across. I'll pay the fees. Send me one across.
Awesome. Yeah, let's get it done. Well, I'll get you one sent over for sure.
Doogie's a boy. He'd never remember me, but he did a bunch of camps when we were younger. Doogie was playing for Edinburgh, and he did like a lot of skills camps, and I went to a few of them. So
very nice. So let's talk about. Go ahead and plug your social media and your podcast real quick.
I don't know. I've never had to. This is my first time as a guest on a podcast, so I'm weirdly more nervous for this than I am for interviewing people like Mags and things like that.
You're doing good.
My social. How would I plug my social? Well, it's at Over in 80 Minutes on Instagram, underscores between each word, and then it's at Over in 80 Mins, MINS on Twitter. That's where we are. We don't do Facebook because, I don't know, Facebook's dying, slow death. I have lots of embarrassing memories from when I was a kid, so I keep my Facebook separate.
Gotcha.
We're good. Podcast is not rugby exclusive. I try to get anybody. We've had Grand National winning jockeys on. I've had sports journalists on. Rugby's kind of the main focus at the moment, as it's easy to make connections with people you know.
Right.
But we're getting there. It's good. Lots planned, and we've just hit 10 episodes. Well, we're almost 15 episodes now. Yeah, 15 episodes.
Very nice. Good for you, man.
Thanks, man.
Let's see here. So obviously you're in Scotland, but where are you from specifically?
So don't tell the Scottish people this, but I'm adopted Scottish. I was born in good old England, Birmingham, England.
Wow.
So have you guys got Peaky Blinders over there?
Yes. Oh, Netflix.
Yeah, so if I'd stayed where I was born, my accent would have sounded like them, nothing like this.
Oh, interesting. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, so family from England moved up here when I was young and then picked up the accent.
Gotcha. Okay. So what is your origin story with rugby? How did you find rugby?
It was always in my family. I grew up playing football when I was a young kid. I was very much into my football, soccer for you guys. They're not.
Right.
We don't need pads where we come from. No. It's gonna do really well with the American audience. And I'm actually gonna watch the American football after this, so it's fine. But
very nice.
So I grew up with rugby. My old man, he played rugby. He was pretty decent. He played down in Swansea when it was amateur level. When it was an amateur game back in, would have been about 70s, 80s, something like that.
Right.
And then as I got older, I became a bulkier guy, and I wasn't built for football. And my younger brothers both started playing football, and they were better than me. So I went, I'm going to go play something else where I can be the best one in the family.
Right, nice.
And now my brothers are both better than me, and I retired at the age of 25.
Interesting how that works, huh?
Life comes at you fast.
Exactly. All right. So did you seek out Major League Rugby? Did you stumble onto it? How did that happen?
It's great. So I used to work for a company that did rugby retail. So we used to resell jerseys, shirts, things like that.
Okay.
And then I was very aware of the rugby going on just from being a fan of rugby and just being in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was tweeting about something. I tweeted about rugby-based podcasts. And it was Mags's own podcast. It was the Full Contact CEO podcast came up. Yeah. And he replied to my tweet going, well, what about us? ? I hadn't tagged them. And then I started listening to it, and I was like, "Oh, these guys are pretty cool." I really love Mags's attitude. You said yourself you listened to my episode with Mags, but he has got an infectious personality for just get up and get it done.
Yes.
And it was something I really resonated with, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll support. Like, I like it, and I support the team." And then as it's just grown older, I just became a big Free Jacks fan. So now I'm on the Rugby Network most weekends watching the Free Jacks play.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. Mags is, I've said this on another podcast, but I feel like he's so smart that it's great that he found rugby in high school. Otherwise, he would be like some sort of super evil genius right now, like some sort of super villain that you can see.
Yes. He would be not to make fun of the ginger hair, but do you remember in The Incredibles, the Disney film with Syndrome? He'd be like that. Unbelievable technology at his disposal.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what are your impressions of MLR?
It's on the. I think it's really growing. So I think it's on the up and up. And I think the stuff they've got going with the Rugby Network is incredible in terms of their ability to broadcast it. I mean, look at me. I'm 5 or 6 hours ahead of you guys just now.
Yeah.
So I'm watching. It's great for all of us because a lot of British people live on an American time schedule because, like we were discussing, like the NFL is a big, massive property,
right,
and things like that. So the NBA is very popular over here, and then pro wrestling has a big home over here. Although it's got European origin, it's big in the States. So a lot of me and my friends, we actually live on an American schedule almost. We're up at 1 a.m. watching sport.
Interesting.
So now where the UK is situated is quite nicely because you can start watching rugby at 6 a.m. from New Zealand.
Right.
Carry on. You have a break about 10:30, 11 to get some food, get a bacon roll and a coffee.
Okay.
And then you'll be watching the midday game, then you'll watch the 3 o'clock game, have your dinner, watch some Saturday night telly, which is awful, like Dancing with the Stars or something like that. And then you think, oh, I'll just go to bed. And then you go to bed to the sweet sound of the MLR. And next thing you know, it's 3 a.m. because you've been so hooked into the game.
Awesome. That's fantastic. How is MLR viewed in Scotland and the UK? Do you know a lot of people that watch it as well?
It's growing. I'm probably one of the more, in my friend group, I'm one of the more avid fans, but it's growing. There's chat. It's not an unheard of thing. Mm-hmm. And I think as you keep getting the exports in, like when Ma Nonu and Chris Robshaw went to the Legion, stuff like that, the big signings come in. You got Ben Foden at New York. You've got our Dougie at New England. The names, as the names keep coming in, and it's one of those things, isn't it? The more consistent, as the consistent it gets, it grows. Fans become more interested. Word of mouth spreads, and as I said with the Rugby Network, the more and more you give it, you make it able to view, it'll draw interest. Because I mean, Rugby Network is, off the top of my head, it's free, isn't it? So it's not even like you have to pay to watch it. Yeah, so
right,
free rugby. What more could you tell kids? Go watch free professional rugby.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So are the MLR teams comparable to like the teams up there, comparable to like Edinburgh or Glasgow, some of the professional club teams up there?
In terms of, I think I describe it as a little brother type situation at the moment, because I know the SRU have a correlation with DC Glory, I think it is.
Yes. I
know they have a correlation with them. There's a relationship there, and I think it's some sort of pathway program. Okay. So I think there's definitely scope together, because I mean, look at New England as a great example. You're in the heart of Boston, and it's like, I was talking to Mags about, it's trophy time. You've got Bruins, you've got Patriots, you've got Celtics, you got Red Sox, exactly. You've got some iconic teams in sports history.
Yes.
And then you've got some passionate fans there. Mm-hmm. And it's a sport that in theory Americans should love, because like we said at the NFL, it's 17 weeks of hard-hitting nonstop. The only thing that makes them stop is somebody going, there's a thunderstorm and there's a high chance you could get electrocuted. That is the only reason we will not play this game.
Right. So
if you went to somebody who went, do you enjoy American football? And they go, yeah. Do you not fancy spending 7 hours to watch one game and spend 3? And you can still get just as drunk, you can have just as much fun, and you don't have to sit on your hands for 15 minutes waiting for the next big exciting thing to happen. So
listen, I've been I'm a rugby evangelist, so anytime anybody brings up American football, I'm like, oh, wait, have you ever heard of rugby? So I've been doing that for 20 years, man. So, I mean, hopefully we've made a little bit of a dent here. So now that we've got professional rugby, people like, it's in the zeitgeist, it's in the back of their minds. So, yeah, I mean, it's been quite the journey for a lot of us that they've been so obscure for so long. And now that it's slowly gaining momentum, it's awesome. It feels like we've been working towards something,
Exactly. Well, exactly. It's the work of people like yourselves, like Mags, like the whole, like everybody behind every team. Like there's a lot more to rugby than 15 guys on a pitch and 7 guys on a bench. So for sure. Anybody that's growing it, the fact that you guys are selling out the old stadium, I know we're moving soon, but the fact you were selling out the old stadium, was it the second last game of the season or the last game of the season where it was torrential rain? The crowd was still wall to wall.
It was the last game at Fort Union Point against New York. It was completely a downpour, a monsoon. It was pissing rain. And that's when the fans actually really came together as a unit, because the people that stayed there, the hardcores, like we just had so much energy. It was like anything that you would ever see anywhere else. Like it was just times 10. It was amazing. And that's what galvanized the fan base, I think. And then that next game, we actually went to the new stadium, which is in Quincy, Massachusetts, closer to Boston. Yeah, it was amazing.
No, exactly. And then like rugby in the rain is the best thing. So especially when we had, was it Waka that ended up playing 10 that game?
Yeah, it sounds right. Yep.
Waka was playing 10, and I remember I was watching it, and he just kind of got the ball from the back of the set piece. Yeah. And he looked at what was the optional crash ball in the piss and rain, and he just kind of, you literally saw him just go, am I allowed to swear?
Yeah, of course.
yeah. And he saw the pod and he just went, fuck it, and just threw it to the wing. Like he just put all his power into that ball. And I was like, that's the best kind of advert for rugby right there.
Absolutely.
15 people that just go, fuck it, and just play.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is the current state of rugby in Scotland right now?
We're growing. The amateur game's back on track. It's weird. I mean, I'm so out of the loop. I'm not in any fields or anything, any communities, boards. But as a fan of rugby in Scotland, it's back. We have the national one. That's like the top amateur league here. That's getting fans back again. So that's good. I've still got friends that play in that league. I've got people that I've played in with teams when I was younger in those leagues. So they're finally getting fans back. So we can go watch our teams play again, which is always good. Nobody's having to do COVID tests and lockdown.
Right.
Ridiculous. The pro game's getting better. We've got an abundance of depth at certain positions and then lacking in between. But the national team's coming on really, really well. I think we're starting to play exciting rugby, and then our women's team are doing so well. Our women's team are incredible. They just got through to a World Cup qualifier tournament the other day, so they've got to go and play in, might be a month or a couple of months or so, but they've got to go play for them. Shout out to them.
Right.
I used to work with some of the players as a sort of ambassadors for my previous role, and they're some of the nicest people ever, and they're like amateur players, so they're playing like going doing 10-hour work days and then hitting the gym and stuff like that, and it's ungodly hours. There's a lot. I can't remember. There's one woman called Sarah Bonner. She's an RAF trained private. So she's like working for the army during the day and then going and hitting a scrum machine at night and then playing for Harlequins women in the weekends.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So no, the state of rugby's growing, and then I think they're getting more kids playing, and then as long as you're getting kids playing, there's always going to be rugby in the city, which is good.
Just a quick question. I mean, I know that you guys have two professional teams there in Edinburgh and Glasgow. Could Scotland support an additional professional team, do you think?
We used to have one. We used to have one down my area, which is the Borders, which is the border between England and Scotland. So it's like I'm 30 minutes south of Edinburgh. Okay. So we used to have one there in the lovely town of Galashiels. Shout out to Galashiels. If you ever be there, you'll know why nobody goes back. Yeah, we used to have the Border Reavers. So we used to have 3 professional teams, and they had some pretty big players in there. Chris Cussiter, Scotland legends, Chris Patterson, things like that played for the Borders. Mm-hmm. And then I don't know if they were to make a third team. I think they could. I think you'd be spreading a very thin pool of players.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then I think you'd be doing well. So we have they've developed what they call the Super Six, which is a semi-pro league. Okay. Which is like so they've got 6 that they gave what were called out Super Six contracts to the 6 biggest clubs in Scotland, or what they perceive to be the biggest clubs. So you have Melrose, which everybody's heard of from the home of the Sevens, things like that. They've got a team which are now the Southern Knights. They're like a regional team. Then you have, I'm going to embarrass myself now. All the names have left me. We've got Heriots, Watsonians, Boroughmuir, Stirling County, Southern Knights, and Ayrshire, the last one. And that's how they do. So they're missing a bit of professionalism up north. Gotcha. But other than that, they're going well. The Central Belt's kind of where it ends. But there's teams up there. There's Aberdeenshire and things like that. They get some games. So in the short rounded answer to your question, you probably could get a third team, but it would be very thin on the ground in terms of professional level players. So I think the way to do it now is I'd stick with the 2 and really flesh them out. Gotcha. All right. In my unbiased, non-professional opinion.
Yeah, no problem. So next thing I wanted to ask you here is, did you hear about the Dougie Fife appreciation game that we had, where we dressed up in kilts for the last home game, and we had the Braveheart colors on, the blue face paint? Did you hear about that overseas?
I missed that. I completely missed that. When was that?
That was the
last home game you said.
Yeah, against Atlanta. So a bunch, I would say like 40 to 50 guys all dressed up in kilts. and wore, well, a couple of us wore the face paint, not everybody, but I did, of course, because I'm a diehard. But yeah, we all did the whole Braveheart thing. As a person that is in Scotland and has a Scottish accent, even though you're technically English, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I love it. Did you eat haggis after it?
No, I've never had that before.
Do you know what haggis is?
Yes, I do. Actually, that we'll get to haggis a little bit later on, but yes, I've heard of it. Yeah.
Mate, oh no, I think that's any time when a player becomes a little bit of a cult hero is always good. And then, because I mean, we've got some incredible players that could be. I mean, I think we must have the best hairstyles in the MLR just in our front row alone. Like so many passionate mullets and things, and the afros, and like Kyle Quakera's one is unbelievable. Yes. The fact that man does not have a Head and Shoulders or shampoo advert deal is a crime against man.
Yeah, that needs to happen immediately. Yeah. For sure.
I will develop a shampoo and just get him to promote.
Great idea. Speaking of the Free Jacks, who is your favorite Free Jack? Is it Dougie Fife?
I like the team. I don't get to, because it's on so late. There's times when I just don't get to watch the games and then the teams. But I mean, we had the guys that were getting into the team of the year and stuff like that. It was the back rower. His names escape me. He was phenomenal without a doubt. Yes, like names escape me, but you watch them and then I say it all the time. I had a bit of an interesting story for you. So I represent a men's mental health group called Blokes. So plug it quickly. I'll just keep the cap in the background when I'm going. So
very nice.
Blokes is a men's mental health group. So if anybody ever wants to get on the forum there, we have open forums and that just to discuss how people are feeling and things like that. And
cool.
So we have some brilliant ambassadors there. We had a guy called his name's Callum Cirker. He's phenomenal. He's currently playing for the Cornish Pirates.
All right.
But he was, in my opinion, I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but in my opinion, he was very unfairly dumped by Wasps. You know, the Premiership club.
Oh yeah.
So he had a history of horrible injuries. So he got dumped by Wasps. And then I was texting him the whole time. I was like, mate, you could do a lot worse than going and playing in the MLR.
Right. Yep.
So like there's that. I'm trying to compare the caliber of, you can have such, like we were talking about earlier, how they compare.
Yes.
You do get these big name players coming across and these high skill level players. And it's just always impressive to see. But in another way to answer a long question a short way, my favorite players probably Dougie or even the back row, and I do like Waka as well, just because I like that bullshit let's just play rugby attitude. So
yep.
And then for the hairstyles, you've got like the front row as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it must be tough to scrum against somebody when you've got a mullet in your face.
Absolutely, those are some good names for some of the best Free Jacks that we have, for sure. So you're right, you're on the right path there. As mentioned earlier, you did an interview with Mags, who is a super genius and just amazing. We're so lucky to have him as the CEO of the Free Jacks. What did you take away from that interview?
Mags, it's one of those ones where I learned more from Mags's attitude than I did from the questions I had. I say this to people go like, oh, how's your podcast going? What's your favorite one? And then it's weird because everyone's been a favorite one in a different way, because I've taken so much difference from every single one. Like, for example, I love George's because George's was my first ever podcast, George Taylor, the Edinburgh Centre. And I love George's because it was me having the courage to put it out there, even though I knew it wasn't the perfect podcast that's ever going to be on the internet. Because if I was waiting for that, I'd never put a podcast out there. And then I loved Mags's because it was such an insight into parts of rugby you don't normally get to see. Like you've got the head of a franchise just going, oh yeah, I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'm an open book. And it's so inspiring to see. And then one of the things that leaves you with Mags is, like we said at the very start when we're talking about him being a super genius, is like there's no such thing as a problem. It's more just the case he gets given a problem and he just goes, right, so what do we need to do to solve it? He doesn't get given a problem, just go, okay, we can't do that.
Yep.
Which is a very inspiring attitude to have and something I want to try and implement.
Yeah, I mean, he's a USA Rugby legend as well. For the folks that are listening to this right now, make sure you go check out the Over in 80 Minutes podcast that features Mags. It's really good. Anytime I see him on something, I immediately stop what I'm doing and go listen to that. That's why I found your podcast, because it's just so insightful. What he says is it's brilliance coming out.
That's it. He's. I don't think there's any wasted words. And like you said, he has that ability to. He's what I call he's a thumb stopper. So when people are scrolling through social media, when it's mags, you stop and see what it is.
For sure. I agree 1,000%.
I'm gonna sound like I've got an unhealthy obsession with mags from the other side of the planet right now.
That's all right, man. I definitely do. I'm the unofficial president of his fan club over here, that doesn't exist, but yeah, we're big fans.
It's him and what's her name? Tammy McQueen.
Yes.
She's another very inspiring person to follow on social. She seems to never stop either.
Yep, she's killing it in her company there in Atlanta. So she works for the Free Jacks during the home games, but she travels from Atlanta to do that. So she commutes that. I mean, for the folks that don't know that are watching this from overseas, perhaps that's a long distance to go to.
That'd be what, 6 or 7 hours on the flight or something?
It's not quite that long. I would say 3-ish, but that's still quite the commute.
I was going to say that's up from, I don't know, I'd be here for the Scottish listeners, that's about here to Spain or here to Paris. So.
Right, yeah.
You're getting there.
The country is just so vast. People don't really quite understand, especially the internationals that come over and play in MLR. If you're going from, let's say, New England, plays LA, that is a 6-hour flight. It's just incredible to think about.
Especially when the most like Diggy, the most he'll probably do is a couple of hours down south if he's very unlucky. So
right, yeah. Okay, so one of the last things here we've got is give us your best Boston or American accent. We're doing this with all of our international folks that we've had on the past couple of weeks, because I've had a lot of players that are been retained, and the coaches are all internationals as well.
Amazing. I'm trying to think of my experiences with Boston. So another little background. So my major experience with Boston is the Bruins, because I was on a school trip to Vancouver when the Bruins won the Stanley Cup.
That's awesome.
You remember when there was the riots in Vancouver?
Yes. Yeah,
we got on a flight the morning before that happened. So
oh my God.
I left my mum and dad. I left and I was like, "Mum, this city's amazing. Such a culture. Everybody's so calm and peaceful."
Yeah.
And then got off the plane. I was like, "Oh, the street I was stood on yesterday is now on fire. How good to know."
Yeah, a lot of frustration with Canadians not winning the Stanley Cup just bowled over.
They like hockey. When I speak to James O'Neill, he tells me they like hockey.
Love it. Yeah.
Right, Boston accent. I'm terrified I'm going to do a New York one and then really offend somebody, but
let's hear it.
And walk in here, get out of here.
That's not terrible. I've heard worse.
The way you looked at the screen tells me that it wasn't very good.
No. I've heard worse on this podcast, so that I'd say that's middle of the road. So not too bad.
Somewhere like Connecticut Road.
So final thing here, we do one word association. So I'm going to say a couple of words, and I want you to just tell me the first thing that pops into your mind when I say these things. All right?
Yeah, perfect. Go.
United States of America.
Patriotic.
Love that. Okay. MLR.
Growing.
Dougie Fife.
Cult hero.
All right. Scotland.
Home of the free.
All right. New England Free Jacks.
My favorite.
All right. Final thing here is haggis.
Is haggis what?
Oh, I'm just saying it is haggis is the last word that we have here.
All right. Yeah, haggis. Oh, tasteful. Sunday morning, can't beat it. Put it on your fry up.
All right.
If you want the ultimate Scottish thing, you gotta get a real fresh Sunday morning roll from your butchers or Saturday morning roll, butchers, bakers. Get it lathered up with butter. I want like a little extra layer of butter on the top. Then you get squared sausage. Squared sausage is what we do around here, and then put that on. Let the butter start to melt. Haggis on top, and then red sauce. Squish it all together. That's you ready for any game of rugby.
Yikes! It just sounds gross, to be honest with you. But we have something similar where I'm from. I'm from North Carolina, and it's actually very centralized to where I'm from. It's called liver mush. Look it up. Everybody listening to this, Google liver mush.
Liver mush. I've got it written down here on a note, so I'll look at that once we finish here.
Perfect. All right, this has been awesome, Sam. Let's do it again sometime. I appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for coming on. And we actually say one thing here to exit the videos. So I'm going to say, I'm going to give you a countdown, 3, 2, 1, and you say with me, huzzah. Okay.
Amazing.
3, 2, 1, huzzah.
Huzzah.
All right. Cool, man. Thank you so much.
Cheers, Phil. Thank you very much, man.
Appreciate it. Bye.